There's this really wild thing that happens when you start waking up to what's really going on, like the real deal of existence. It's this crazy paradox. The second you figure out that it's all just a cosmic game, the moment you peek behind the curtain of illusion, there are some things you just can't unsee. You can't go back to believing in them the way you used to. It's like trying to believe in Santa after you catch your dad sneaking around on Christmas Eve. You can't just decide to be innocent again. It doesn't work like that. Now, right off the bat, when I say awaken people, I'm not talking about some kind of superheroes with halos floating around, whispering all the time. Nope. An awakened person is just someone who's seen through the whole separation thing, who gets that the individual self, the ego, that little me we think we are, is a big joke. Not a mean joke, but a joke nonetheless. The first thing an awakened person can't see anymore is the reality of problems. Now, I'm not saying that tough stuff doesn't happen. It still rains. You can still get hurt. Bills still show up. But what goes away is the feeling of a problem, the psychological weight of it. You see, a problem only exists when there's a you that's fighting against what is. The second you truly understand that you aren't some separate thing battling the universe, problems just turn into situations that need a response. Think about it like this. Does your stomach think it has a problem when it hurts? Of course not. It just is doing its thing. The problem only pops up when your ego, that fake sense of a separate you, jumps in and says, "This shouldn't be happening to me." But when you see through that whole charade of separation, when you realize you aren't something inside your body looking out at the world, but you are the whole process, the idea of having problems is just silly. It's like the ocean getting all stressed out about its waves. Can you imagine the Pacific lying on a shrink's couch saying, "Doc, I have a huge problem with my waves. They keep going up and down, and I can't control them." The thought is ridiculous because the ocean is the waves. That's what it does. And in the same way, an awakened person can't see their experiences as problems separate from themselves because they get that they aren't separate from what's happening. Now, the second thing that kind of fades away for an awakened person is the importance of the past and future. This is a tough one for people because we're taught that our whole lives are about getting from the past to the future. We think of ourselves as having a history and heading towards some goal. But that's just another trick of the light. The awakened person lives in what I call the eternal now. Not because they've read a book about it, but because they've seen that the past and future are just made-up ideas. The past is a memory happening right now. The future is something you're thinking about right now. There's really no time except this very second. When you really get this, deep down, the worry about the future and the baggage of the past just vanish. This doesn't mean you become irresponsible or stop planning. Actually, you get way better at things because you aren't wasting energy stressing over things that aren't real. You plan when you need to. You remember things when it's helpful. But you don't confuse these thoughts with something that's actually out there, separate from this moment. The third thing that awakened folks can't see anymore is the line between themselves and other people. This is maybe the biggest change of all. You see, most people live in a state of what you might call constant suspicion. They feel cut off from the world, so they see other people as either threats or tools to use. It's me versus not me, us versus them, friends versus enemies. But the awakened person has seen through that. They understand that the wall between self and other is totally fake. Just like your right hand doesn't think your left hand is the enemy, just like your heart doesn't see your lungs as something foreign, the awakened person doesn't feel like other people are fundamentally separate from them. This doesn't mean they can't tell people apart. They know the difference between you and me, but on a deeper level they understand that we're all just parts of one big thing. All waves in the same ocean, all notes in the same song. And once you see that, really see it, you can't go back to being all suspicious and separate. It's as impossible as seeing the world like a baby after you've learned to talk. Now, another thing that fades away is the idea of being in control. The ego loves to think it's running the show, that it's making all the decisions, thinking all the thoughts, and doing all the things. But when you wake up, you see that it's all just a story. Thoughts pop up by themselves, decisions happen, actions happen, but there's no little person inside pulling the strings. This is a scary thought for the ego because it means that the you it thought it was isn't real. But it's also the most freeing thing you can realize because it means you can stop trying to control everything, which you never could anyway. You can just relax and let the universe do its thing because you're part of it. Think about it like this. When you talk, do you plan out every single word, thinking about the grammar and everything? Of course not. The words just come out. And if you try to control them too much, you get all tongue-tied. Life is the same way. The awakened person has found out that life just happens. Like breathing happens, like your heart beats. And once you see that, the idea of the ego being in control just doesn't make sense anymore. The awakened person also can't see the world as solid and still anymore. Most people think that the world is made of stuff, things that last over time, solid things that bump into each other. But waking up shows you that the world isn't made of things at all. It's made of processes, of verbs instead of nouns, of things moving and changing instead of being fixed. You see, when you look at a mountain or a tree or another person, you're really seeing something that's changing all the time, a swirling pattern in the river of existence. The mountain is mountaining. The tree is treeing. The person is personing. Everything is something happening. And once you see the world like that, you can't go back to seeing it as just a bunch of solid objects. This is what the Buddhists mean when they talk about emptiness. They don't mean that nothing is there. They mean that nothing is there in the way we usually think it is. Everything is empty of being separate and lasting. Everything is just something that's happening for a while in the endless flow of existence. Another thing that you can't see anymore is how serious everything is. Now, this is often misunderstood. People think that awakened people must be sad and serious, that they've seen the truth and now they're all bummed out. But it's actually the opposite. The awakened person is the one who finally gets the joke, who realizes that the whole thing is just a kind of game, what the Hindus call Leela. You can't take yourself seriously when you realize you aren't a separate self. You can't take your problems seriously when you see that they're just little ripples on the surface. You can't take the world seriously when you understand that it's all just happening, without any reason behind it. This doesn't mean the awakened person becomes a jerk. Actually, it's the opposite. When you stop taking yourself so seriously, you can finally take life seriously in the right way. You can play the game with everything you've got, while still knowing that it's a game. You can care about things deeply without feeling like your own little self is going to be better or worse because of it. The awakened person also can't see meaning as something separate from what's happening. Most people are always asking, what does this mean? What's the point of my life? Why is this happening? They're looking for some kind of secret message that's hidden in things. But the awakened person has found out that meaning isn't something you can find or take out of life. Life itself is the meaning. When you watch a dance, you don't ask what it means. The dance isn't about something else. It just is. And its meaning is part of what it is. In the same way, life doesn't mean something. Life is meaning, is importance, is value. And when you realize that, you stop looking for some hidden reason behind everything and you start enjoying it all. Here's another cool thing. The awakened person can't see their thoughts as something they own anymore. Usually, we're totally sure that our thoughts are ours. We say, my thoughts, my opinions, my beliefs, like we made them ourselves. But awakening shows you that thoughts are just things that happen in your head, like clouds in the sky. You don't make your thoughts any more than you make the weather. They just show up, hang around for a while, and then go away. And once you've seen that clearly, you can't think of your thoughts in the same way. You might still have thoughts. You might even have more interesting and creative thoughts than before, but you don't think that you are them. You understand that you're the space where thoughts happen, not the thoughts themselves. This brings us to another thing. The awakened person can't see suffering as something that shouldn't be. Now, this is a tricky one. I'm not saying that the awakened person likes suffering or tries to find it. What I'm saying is that they don't make suffering worse by fighting against it. You see, pain is going to happen. If you have a body, you're going to feel pain. But suffering is extra. Suffering is pain plus fighting it. Pain plus your ego saying, this isn't fair. When you totally accept what's happening right now without wishing it were different, the pain might still be there, but the suffering goes away. It's like the difference between a tight muscle and a relaxed one. Both can feel something, but the tight muscle is adding extra pain by being tense. The awakened person has learned to relax into life, even when it hurts. And that changes everything. The awakened person also can't see death as the opposite of life. Usually, we think life and death are enemies, fighting each other forever. We hold on to life and fear death, thinking that when we die we'll stop being. But awakening shows you that that's not right. Death isn't the opposite of life. Birth is the opposite of death. Life doesn't have an opposite. Life is the ground, the stage, the eternal now where birth and death happen, like waves in the ocean. You aren't born into life and then kicked out of it at some point. You are life showing itself through this body for a while, and then going back to itself only to show itself again in tons of other ways. When you understand that, death isn't any scarier than going to sleep. You don't worry about going to sleep because you know you'll wake up, even if you don't remember who you were when you were asleep. And in the same way, the awakened person knows that death is just going back to where you came from, dropping the body, but not losing what you really are. Another thing that becomes invisible is the idea of trying to get somewhere spiritually. This might seem strange, but the awakened person realizes that there's nowhere to go, nothing to achieve, no better place to get to. Awakening isn't a place you get to at the end of a long road. It's understanding that you never left home in the first place. The spiritual seeker is like someone who's lost their glasses and is looking everywhere for them, not realizing they're on their head. The second you find them, you realize that the whole search was pointless. You were never separate from what you were looking for. You are it. You always have been it. And you always will be it. This doesn't mean that life gets boring after awakening. Actually, it gets way more interesting because you aren't stuck in the small world of your ego anymore. But you don't feel like you're trying to get somewhere spiritually. You don't feel like you're not good enough yet. You're already here. You've always been here. And here is all there ever is. The awakened person also can't see enemies anymore. They might know that some actions are bad and need to be stopped. They might work to stop people from being cruel or unfair, but they don't see the people doing those things as totally different, as aliens that need to be destroyed. They understand that not knowing what you're doing is the only real enemy, and you can't destroy that. You can only shine a light on it. When you truly understand that you aren't a separate self, you realize that the person doing harm isn't a separate self either. They're just the universe showing itself in a confused way. But the basic thing is the same. This doesn't mean you let people get away with bad stuff. It means you deal with it with wisdom instead of hate, with understanding instead of blaming. Here's something else that goes away: the idea of owning things. Most people go through life getting stuff and saying it's theirs. My house, my car, my family, my country, my opinions, my life. But the awakened person has seen through that game. You don't really own anything. You're just taking care of things for a while, but you came into this world with nothing, and you'll leave with nothing. Even your body isn't really yours. It's just a pattern that the universe is making for a bit, and then it'll go back to being other patterns. And once you've realized that, you stop holding on so tight. Stop trying to own and control things. This doesn't mean you become a bum or stop using things. It means you think about things differently. You enjoy them while they're around. You take care of them, but you don't think they're you. You travel light through life. The awakened person also can't see things as random or meaningless. Not because they've decided that everything happens for a reason, but because they've seen that the universe is all connected, one big thing happening. In a connected system, nothing is random. Everything is connected to everything else, not in a simple cause and effect way, but in a deeper way. It's not that everything happens for some specific reason you can figure out, but that everything belongs, everything fits, everything is needed for the pattern to be what it is. When you see this, even the worst things seem like they're part of the bigger dance of existence. This doesn't make pain go away, but it stops you from suffering more by feeling like life is a mess. Now, another thing the awakened person can't see anymore is the need to compare themselves to others. The ego is always measuring itself, asking, am I as good as? Am I better than? How do I rank? But awakening shows you that comparing yourself is based on the idea of being separate. When you realize that you aren't a separate person competing with other separate people, comparing yourself just doesn't make sense. You aren't better or worse than anyone else because there isn't a separate you to be better or worse. You're just a unique way that life is expressing itself. Like every wave in the ocean is unique, but not separate from the ocean. This is really freeing because you can finally stop competing, stop measuring, stop judging yourself. You can just be what you are, completely, without feeling sorry or proud. The awakened person also can't see the future as the place where they'll finally be happy. The ego is always putting off being happy, always saying, I'll be happy when I get the job, when I find someone, when I retire, when I become enlightened. But the awakened person has found out that happiness isn't something that will happen later. It's what happens when you stop fighting against what's happening right now. You see, happiness isn't something that comes to you. It's what you are when you remove all the things that are stopping you from seeing what you are. And those things are all about wanting things to be different than they are. When that wanting stops, not because you're trying to stop it, but because you understand it, what's left is feeling good, feeling content, feeling peaceful. Finally, and maybe most important, the awakened person can't see themselves as a victim anymore. Feeling like a victim is based on thinking you're a separate self that's being controlled by things outside you. And while it's true that you can't control everything that happens, awakening shows you that you aren't really a separate person that things are happening to. You are the happening itself. When a wave crashes on the shore, we don't say the ocean is being hurt by the shore. The ocean is the wave and the shore and the crashing. In the same way, you aren't separate from what's happening in your life. You are life living itself, and nothing is happening to you. It's all happening as you. This is the ultimate freedom. Not freedom from hard times, but freedom from thinking you're a separate self that's being controlled by those times. When that idea goes away, what's left is understanding that you are everything, both the waves and the ocean, both the dancer and the dance. And this, my friends, is what the awakened person can't see anymore. All the complicated things that the ego makes up to keep you thinking you're separate. Once you've seen through those things, once you realize that it's all a game, you can't go back to seeing things the old way. You can pretend, you can play along, but you've lost that original innocence forever. And yet, and this is the final twist, in losing that innocence you find an even deeper one. The innocence of just being what you are, without pretending, without defending yourself, without needing to be anything other than this moment always unfolding. Thank you.